What was a sentence a man said to you that you will never forget? Story 1. I'm so sorry, but your wife's brain is shutting down, and there's nothing we can do. 72 hours after a head-on collision, 2 days later, I decided to remove her from life support, as it was determined she was brain dead. She died comfortably in my arms at the age of 28. Reply. I hear that, bro. For me, the phrase was, the damage was catastrophic when talking about the aneurysm that burst in my wife's brain. She ended up saving a life with her heart and gave sight to 2 more with her corneas. Sorry. I don't mean to hijack. I'm sorry for your loss. 2, it's my grandson's birthday. I'm taking him to the park. It was my 8th birthday. That birthday happened to be the 11th of September, 2001. I'm from the UK, so it wasn't as terrible as it could have been, but obviously 9/11 was terrible regardless. I got let out of school early. I got home, my other grandparents were there, my parents were there to see me on my birthday. I couldn't believe my luck and was excited. I got in and everyone ignored me. I think I was even shushed. I had no real knowledge or grasp of the situation unfolding. I thought they were engrossed in an action movie. I wept and was rather sad. Over the next 48 hours, when I finally understood what had actually happened, I felt very, very guilty for reacting in such a way. I still feel guilty for acting like that. My granddad came to the door. I answered, and he told me, "Happy birthday." My folks shouted out to him and asked if he'd heard the news. He shouted back, "Yes, but it's my grandson's birthday. I'm taking him to the park." And that's what he did. I had a nice time. He passed away less than 2 years later, so it's even more important to me. He was a complicated man and probably didn't want to go in my house because his ex-wife was in there, but still, it meant a lot to me, and I'll never forget it. Reply. That's beautiful, that knowing such a tragic thing had happened on your birthday, your grandfather probably made the effort to prioritize his focus on you instead of the horrific event. I'm so sorry, such a sad and disastrous thing disrupted your birthday. But did you at least have a nice time at the park with your grandfather? Another reply. I feel selfish every time I wish it wasn't something that happened on my birthday. I had and still mostly have my family on a good and normal day. Many people lost their lives, and some kids lost parents that day. I can't imagine such an awful reality. I didn't actually play in the park. It was only a small concrete one at the end of my street. I didn't feel like it. But I leaned on the wall next to my granddad, and we just talked. How my day had gone so far, what presents I'd gotten, how school was. Even at 8, I appreciated a normal conversation with a loved one more than anything. It's a very cherished memory of mine. Story 3. In Germany, at my first brewing job, I popped off the wrong clamp on a holding tank, which sent a torrent of quality German beer shooting out at me at 25 psi. It was a struggle, but my boss and I eventually managed to get the valve back on to stop the flow. I went outside to recover from all the CO2 I had inhaled. When he came out to hose me off, I told him I felt like a fucking idiot, and he said, "Making a mistake doesn't make you an idiot. Making it twice makes you an idiot." Then, as he walked away, he added, "I should know. I've done that shit 3 times. When I went back in, he had already cleaned up the mess. Great guy. Story 4. Everything is political. My politics tutor on the journalism course I was doing years ago. Before this, I didn't realize how politics affected anything. I was dumb and just voted for who I liked. This is Ireland, Americans. We have lots of choice when the time came around. But after having him as a tutor, and once he said those words, I noticed it more and more. I learned a lot from that man, while the other tutors on that course barely made a mark. I failed the course for other reasons, but I'm happy I was taught by him. He passed away a year or 2 ago, and anytime something major happens on the news, I wonder in the back of my mind what he would say about it. Story 5. Context. My abusive college ex had accepted a gig in another city even though he didn't have a car because he was expecting to use mine. I had a regular off-campus job that I worked before and between classes, so not only was the car mine, not his in the slightest, we didn't even live together, and he certainly didn't help pay for the car, but I actually needed it. Even still, I had tried to work out rides with friends so he could borrow it, even though he only told me about it the day before, but ultimately wasn't able to, so I told him he couldn't use it since I otherwise had no way to get between work and class. Yeah, so I asked, "Friend," and you know what he said? He said yes, because that's what you do when someone needs something. Story number 6. They've taken prisoners, drop everything except ammo and water, as my 1SG filled my pockets with hand grenades. Loading onto the first bird to Barialai on May 1st, 2009. Our repeat brothers, I'll see you up top. Reply, yeah, I am, but I'm not a murderer, my squad leader said. We had been taking indirect mortars, for anyone who doesn't know fire, for a couple of weeks. On this one patrol, we snatched their Fister forward observer, the guy who sends back the coordinates of where to fire to those artillery mortar teams. A quick search of his person, and it was like 98% certain this dude was sending our grid location back. I mean, the fact he had a cell phone on him at all was extremely suspect. In this part of Somalia, the villagers didn't have cell phones. So yeah, dude was probably Al-Shabaab. We captured him, zip-tied up, etc. The group guys that we were working with, well, I say working with, but we were basically there to do the bitch work, help them out, be QRF, etc., wanted to clip him like they expected someone to double tap him immediately. In response to the demand to kill that dude, my squad leader was like, no, we'll take him in and turn him over to local security forces. To which the operator said something to the effect of, I thought you guys were warfighters. And that's when SSG dropped that line. If you know dick about the army, you know what it took for a regular infantry guy to stand up to a spec ops dude like that in that situation. Story number 7. You're being dramatic, he says, as I'm throwing up from severe HG pregnancy carrying his child. I was 18. We were, at the time, 3 years together. Can't believe there was something actually wrong with you, he says after we go to the doctors for severe side back pain during the pregnancy. Turns out I had a severe kidney infection. Let's just say it was both our fault, was said just after I agreed to stay with him after I found out he emotionally cheated on me, also at 18, 3 years together. We can't afford it just now, he says, as I ask him if we can buy our soon-to-be weaning daughter a 70-pound high chair so we can safely begin giving her solid food. 2 hours later, I just bought us himself a 200-pound external miniature server thing for the PC. Story number 8. I'd hate to piss him off too. He seems like a nice guy. Context. I'm big. I'm right around 6.5 feet tall, and at the time of the comment, I was 260 pounds. In working construction, I was the designated big guy at my company for sure. I carried the rebar and the sledgehammer, and I loved doing it. Coworkers and customers alike would fairly regularly make comments about my size, 90% of them being, how tall are you? Or I'd hate to see him mad. Or even, I see why you give him the sledgehammer. After a while, I could pretty easily predict most comments before they even happened, especially when meeting new people for the first time who saw me climb out of the truck and start grabbing gear. This one specific job, I had been to plenty of times before and knew most of the people working there. When the guy I was with made a passing comment about me along the lines of, yeah, that's why I try not to piss him off. The man at the job site made the comment, I'd hate to piss him off too. And my brain just said, oh, great, here we go. Another Bigfoot or scary dude comment. But then he said, he seems like a nice guy. I was so caught off guard that I was baffled for the rest of the workday. I had never had someone go off script so dramatically like that, especially a male. To be recognized by an acquaintance for something other than my physical size was so unusual for me that I've never forgotten it. It was a very rare moment of feeling seen as a man in a masculine profession. Story number 9. Men are only as good as what when nobody watches, you know. I'm not going to be watching anymore. My mom told me this about what he said. I don't speak or read a lick of it. This was my grandfather the last time I spoke to him. I have others. I've typed them out, but this one is the one that makes my eyes well up when I hear it in my head. He was an immigrant and worked every day of his life until he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He passed 5 days after diagnosis at breakfast before work with his wife. I had come to help him clean off his RV for the summer 2 days before since he didn't feel safe on the ladder anymore. I miss him every day. It's been 8 years. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more incredible Reddit tales. Share your thoughts or your own experiences in the comments below. I love hearing from you all. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring those amazing stories.